Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Why don't you follow me on a little walk through the German forest in early spring while I talk a little bit about the current trade war of Mr. Trump, the tariff situation. I commented on that already during Trump's first term, and I will pick up pretty much where I left back then. I will talk about it from a European perspective. Germany is a country that is probably not Mr. Trump's favorite country right now. But yeah, it is what it is, and maybe what I say rubs some of my listeners from other countries or even from Germany the wrong way, but it is my perspective. And here I go. Well, first I want to describe a little bit about how I was following this developing story through the media, and then I give my opinion. So, with Mr. Trump, you always have to be careful. You have to differentiate between what he says and what he probably wants to achieve. Sometimes these are very different things, and what he says, when you take it at face value, if you take it literally, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. And this is why people who like him say that he's playing 4D chess, and people who don't like him, they say that he's just not very smart or he's unhinged and crazy. But yeah, so the situation as it is of course, and during his first term, he already lamented that very loudly or bigly, and that is that the US is sporting an immense trade deficit with a lot of countries, not with all countries, but with a lot of countries, with Germany, for example. Which just means that the US is importing goods that are worth more in dollars or euros than what they export. So the US buys more goods and services from Germany than Germany buys from the US. And Mr. Trump somehow thinks that that is a problem. Well, I'm not an economist really, but I think the disagreement starts already there. Is that really a big issue? Is that really a big deal, or does does a country suffer by necessarily if they have a trade deficit? Or with most countries. All right. And then Mr. Trump always complained about BMW, for example, even though BMW has a gigantic plant in the US, and it is more like Volkswagen and maybe Toyota and others. Also US firms, for example, that produce a lot outside of the US. And what Mr. Trump is probably concerned with, given his voter base, and that is bringing manufacturing jobs back into the US. This is what he says. Not everyone believes that this is actually true, but I have no reason to doubt that. I was saying that always. I mean, you can go back to my old videos even. I was always saying I can't understand how the Americans can run their country, can live in their country with so little production, given their size, their population, and their GDP. And I will come back to that later. And that, I think, was a decision, or it's a fact, it's not my opinion, it's a fact, that this was a deliberate decision by the people who run the show in the United States. Nobody else forced that on the United States for many, many decades. After World War II, some people say in the 70s, some people say earlier, the people who the influential people, the powerful people, politicians, leaders, intellectuals, the business world, what have you, investors, finance, they all agreed that manufacturing is something that the US doesn't need. The American people don't want to work in factories. Poorer countries, they should produce with very, very low hourly wages there, and we can just import that stuff much cheaper than we can make it here in the US. That's what they said. So that was something that the other countries like China or Europe or Germany, what have you, France, they didn't force that system on you. It is the neoliberal order, yeah, Nixon, Thatcher, and so on. They created that, they set that up. We just played by the rules that the United States defined or set for us. All right. So that being said, um, Mr. Trump, well, he is not Mr. Biden or Mr. Clinton or Mr. Bush. So he has a problem with that. He wants to change that. Fine. I agree with that. Yeah, bring back jobs to the United States. You need factories. A big country like that cannot do that. And by the way, in Germany, there has never been a time in German history where a meaningful number of influential people said that we don't need production in Germany. It was always very, very broad consensus that we need those jobs and we need to keep those jobs here in Germany. And this is why we still have them. it's just that now they don't explicitly say we want to get rid of it. They wouldn't even dare to say that, the Green Party, I mean. They just enact laws that in essence just end production, that deindustrialize Germany. But they don't say it's their goal to deindustrialize Germany. They just do everything they can to do it. But that's really not the topic of today's talk. So, okay. So what did Mr. Trump do then? He used tariffs in order to achieve that. I think the idea is if you just have really high tariffs, which means it's a tax for importers, it's a domestic US tax basically for people who import foreign goods, and they have to pay this tax then. So you essentially make foreign goods that go over the border, that are produced somewhere else, you make them more expensive through taxation, and that is called a tariff then. It is nothing else than a tax for foreign stuff, basically. So that was Mr. Trump's idea. To me, that sounds like a short-term, easy fix or something that is working fast. It doesn't require hard work. It is something like a silver bullet, an easy fix solution that he tried. I don't know if that is what he wanted, but this is how it looks like to me. All right. And I think so far it's safe to say, well, it's not safe to say actually, but I think that it didn't work. Because now we had to backpedal already on all countries except for China. So a 90 days referendum or a 90 days pause for these insanely high taxes that he held on this table during that press conference. And I should say a couple of things about that first, because he calls them reciprocal tariffs. And that is something that surprised me, because I thought, well, there is no way. It was this left column on, first there was the name of the country, obviously, but then the number on the left, that is the supposedly that is supposedly the tariffs that other countries impose on U.S. goods, and these numbers were ridiculously high. And that surprised me. So I don't know these things by heart, of course, so I looked them up. And of course, there are tariffs for different products, for different regions, and so on. But none of these countries had tariffs that were actually that high. So I was wondering, where are these numbers coming from? And then on the right column, on the column to the right of that, there was then the reciprocal tariff that Mr. Trump wants for goods from those countries going to America. And that was like half of it or something. It is the discounted tariff then or something or whatever. And then there are countries where the US actually has a trade surplus with, but even for those countries, he put a tariff of 10%. So that 10% is the lowest on this board. And actually, it didn't take me very long to find out that these are not actually the tariffs. What they just did is they took the trade deficit, or the difference in trade outcomes, and he normalized that with the imports or exports or something. So it is a normalized version of the trade disbalance or imbalance, basically. So in other words, it is not a reciprocal tariff. It is just a tariff that is supposedly equaling out or eradicating the trade disbalance. So in other words, it is the answer to the question, how high do the tariffs need to be so that there won't be a trade imbalance anymore, because goods from that country will not be sold anymore because they will be too expensive in America. So that is a very different thing than a reciprocal tariff. And all this rhetoric of Mr. Trump that other countries are taking advantage of America, and he used words that I shouldn't probably use in this video. So that other countries are basically mistreating the US because we rip them off or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. But there is a trade imbalance there, obviously. The question is, how do you get rid of this? So he tried it with tariffs and it didn't work. And what I found out, and this is not my research or my opinion, I just looked it up. What apparently happened is that the bonds market, I think, or bond market, people became a little bit nervous there, and the treasury bonds, the yields of them, they went through the roof. And what that means is ultimately that the interest burden that the US has to pay for their debt would have increased quite a bit if he had gone through with his plan of imposing these tariffs actually for pretty much the whole world. And that would mean that the US couldn't make their debt payments anymore. That is something that all countries that have debt are very much afraid of. And tell me in the comments down below if you disagree with that. This is something I read. I mean, it's plausible to me, it makes sense, but I'm not an economist really, so I don't know. That is apparently the reason why Trump couldn't go through with it, and he just upholds these taxes for China now, but not for other countries. As I said, 90 days pause or something. All right. But he tried to do it with tariffs. So what I think needs to happen, I cannot really give you the solution. It would be too easy. But I totally agree with Mr. Trump in his goal that he wants to bring manufacturing jobs back to the US. I think it is a longer process. It doesn't happen overnight. There is probably no easy fix like that with the tariffs. It requires some more work and some more thinking of how you can make it more attractive for companies to invest in the United States and to bring manufacturing jobs back. Of course, subsidies is something that is already tried or has been tried. The US gives a lot of subsidies, of course. That doesn't work. I don't know. That is a big issue. I'm not going to claim that I have the solution for that. It's a hard problem. And I've always said that this is what the US needs to do if they want to maintain a functioning country, a good life. Because a country of that size, they cannot be just, they cannot have the business model of Liechtenstein or Luxembourg or something. It doesn't work like that. Yeah? You need production. You need jobs for people. All right, so what do I think from a German perspective? As I said already, the neoliberal world order or liberal world order, it wasn't, other countries didn't force that on the US forced that on the world, and now, if I want to be nasty or very critical of Mr. Trump and his administration, they're acting like a petulant child that flips over the playing board when he's about to lose in a game where to be honest, where his people, let's say, they decided or they defined the rules of the game. So you can't win at your own game, so you flip the table, the playing board. Yeah, this is, if I wanted to be very nasty, this is what I would say now. But then again, I'm not even sure that he wants to do that, because he says a lot of things. He says something else all the time. For example, even if the tariffs were zero, between, let's say, the EU and the US, I'm sure that the US would still have a trade imbalance, a trade deficit, and that's just the American consumer is just buying so much more stuff than the European ones. I mean, I mean, it's anecdotal, but the data also corroborates that, I think. Consumer household debt and just the whole culture of financing everything, having several maxed out credit cards and all that stuff, that is just not to that degree the case in Europe. Especially Germans are very careful with going into debt. People don't finance cars, for example, that often. We don't have so much, probably no college debt at all. Oh, well, what we go into debt for is houses, of course, so we have more mortgages, but that's pretty much the only thing, and that is covered, or that has equity or an asset to balance that somehow, so you can sell your house, in other words. So it's a very different situation. And the other thing is, we just make good things still. I mean, the US also, they have their products, but as I said, they themselves were offshoring labor for decades, and we didn't. And you see the result now in this trade imbalance, of course. That is pretty much the situation. So, another thing that Trump says is that he wants to, or I don't know if he explicitly said it, but he wants to pretty much monetize the American empire. That means trade routes and all that stuff, that other countries literally have to make tribute payments. I mean, pretty much like the Huns or something, or the Athenians back then. There are many historical examples where powerful empires, they just straight out ask for tribute payments. And I think Trump, he pretty much said that. Other countries have to pay, or else, ... Military action, or exclusion from the world markets, something like that. That is on the table pretty much. Or he literally said, I don't want zero tariffs. You just should buy LNG from us. And I mean, they already blew up our pipeline with Russia and forced us to buy LNG for ridiculous prices. LNG needs to be brought with diesel tankers over the Atlantic, and the alternative was just getting very cheap gas from the east through a steady land pipeline and also a underwater pipeline, but it is a pipeline in the end. And they took military action against our infrastructure, and it's still not good enough for them. It's still not solving their problem. They're still having a trade disbalance with us, a trade deficit. I wonder what's the next thing. Dropping bombs on Paris and Berlin. And this brings me to the end of this video. I don't want to make it too long. What really rubs me the wrong way is the dishonesty. All this rhetoric about other countries ripping America off, that is just factually wrong. It is an American game. The world order is American. Nothing happens in the world that people in Washington didn't really sign off on. They give the green light for everything that goes on in the world. Pretty much. What goes on in Ukraine, sometimes Trump makes it sound like that this is the war of the Europeans. Well, I think the State Department and the CIA, they had some part in this, starting from 2014, and they of course they prepared it years before that, pretty much. And even US mainstream media is now reporting on that as if it's not really controversial, and it shouldn't be. It's clear that the United States planned this, the color revolution, Maidan Square, toppling a democratically elected pro-Russian government in the Ukraine. This is how it started. And now they're acting like this is a European affair, and why should we pay for this? Well, you started it. Okay. But, well, we shouldn't lament about things that we cannot change. That's how America acts as a country. And we have to deal with that somehow. But the thing that disturbs me the most, especially if you consider that the United States has invaded Europe twice in the 20th century, Europeans defended themselves, but unsuccessfully twice. Europe suffered quite a lot at the hands of other European people, so to speak, because the people that fought there in Europe, that attacked Europe in the 20th century, they were also of European origin. And that is, if you look into that, it's a very sad story. Yeah? They were convinced that it is in their best interest and in the best interest of their families to fight against their own kin in Europe, or their own people, let's say. Also European people they are. And the same thing, or a similar thing, happens in Ukraine, where Slavic people fight against each other, and very, very much hate on both sides. And now I hear that Mr. Trump is once again, the words he uses, I don't like them. Yeah, the way he talks about other people, and he's not talking about other governments, other regimes. When I criticize the United States, I'm not saying the Americans or the American people. I say the Biden administration or Mr. Trump or something, because you have to be very careful here. I think that a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of MAGA people, if the US Air Force were to bomb Berlin, a lot of them would applaud. They would applaud. Yeah, because they think all Germans are degenerate leftists and communists, and they rip us off on trade, and that's what they get for messing with us. This kind of stuff. I think a lot of people in the US, they would actually applaud if Trump bombed Europe. And this is, maybe I'm overreacting here, okay? But I said it. This is the feeling I get when I hear these kinds of speeches that Mr. Trump gives on the topic, and how he talks about other countries that are just, what are we doing in the end? We're just going to work. We're making things, we're developing products, we're marketing them, we're building them, we're shipping them to willing, paying customers who like our products, and now this is somehow wrong or a bad thing? I don't really get it. I mean, I think even if China poses a threat also to the German economy somehow, and a lot of jobs went overseas, I think no German ever said that Chinese workers are evil because they go to a factory and work there and make products that we buy. Yeah, it's kind of insane. But this is the kind of vibe I get from Trump when he talks about these global trade issues. Yeah, and when you're a country that has invaded Europe twice in the last century, I don't know. It's a bad feeling I get. Anyway, maybe I shouldn't drag this out too long. I think I covered most of the points I wanted to make. And I will probably pick that up in the future as the story evolves, or if something important comes up. Let me know what you think about this. I hope you made it until the end. I wouldn't fault you if you didn't. Maybe this was a bit rambling, but a lot of issues, and I talked about this in the past already. So to sum up, I can understand Mr. Trump when he wants to bring manufacturing back to the US. I would do the same thing. I just don't think it works with tariffs alone. That might be an ingredient, but it can't be the whole game plan. I somehow also don't think that this is just a bargaining chip to get people to talk to him or something, because what he wants in the end is tribute payments. Maybe he just wanted to show that he means business and then ask for tribute payments, but he could have asked for tribute payments right away and threatened people with military action. So I don't really know. You never know with this guy, maybe, because he, by design, wants to appear unpredictable, a bit crazy. That's his strategy, of course, as a businessman. Yeah. So, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will continue my little walk here. Servus, Kameraden.